Welcome back to this series introducing people around the topic of mental health. My name is Dolores Andrew and I am Healthy Club Officer with Salthill Knocknacarra GAA Club. And I'm delighted to speak to Nicki Morley this morning. Nicola was actually the lady I worked with in getting our wonderful health and wellbeing sign up in our club just this week as well. And Nicki is the Development Officer with Mental Health Ireland, covering the Galway city and county area. And she's worked in the area of promoting mental health, wellbeing and recovery for over a decade. Her background is in health science and psychology, public
physiology,
public health and health promotion. And she also has worked in the health promotion arena for over 20 years and is passionate about bringing about change that improves the well-being and quality of the lives of individuals, families and communities. And on a personal note, she's a lifelong Meath GAA fan, as she's originally from the Royal County. And her claim to fame is that her cousin was once the goalkeeper for the Meath team. Go, Nicki. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Dolores. Yeah, very proud Meath woman here. And I know Galway beat us in, was it 2001 in the final, but we have to live with that.
And we've had to live with our own people beating us since then too. So look, it's great to have you join the conversation. And, as I say, I worked closely with you for our health and wellbeing sign of the club, which is phenomenal. It's great to have it because what we really want is to create a culture in the club and with the wider community that we accept that we all have mental health. It's not just people out there. We have physical health and we have mental health. But unfortunately, when we say we're sick because of something physical, it seems to be acceptable. But when we say we're sick, something mental health, there seems to be a stigma, which is very unfortunate. And I suppose that's a lot what Mental Health Ireland is about, is helping normalise the conversation. So Nicki, can you talk to us a little bit about Mental Health Ireland and mental health as a topic in general?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you, Dolores, for the invitation to take part in
Pleasure.
this series of interviews. So Mental Health Ireland is a national voluntary organisation that was set up in 1966 with the aim of promoting positive mental health and wellbeing in communities across Ireland and supporting people who had mental health difficulties on their journey to recovery. I suppose Mental Health Ireland has really been ahead of its time for a number of years in terms of that promoting positive mental health and well-being, because at the time that probably wasn't as common a theme as it is nowadays. But our work really has focused on that whole population approach in terms of promoting well-being and what is it that we can do to promote our mental health. And exactly like what you said, just like we all have physical health, we all have mental health. And sometimes when we think of mental health, we can think of mental health difficulties. But over the last, I'd say 5 to 6, maybe 7 years, the conversation is changing around that. And I think everyone is beginning to realize now definitely that, mental health is something we all have, that we all need to invest in and that we all need to look after. So that's really our key area of work in terms of opening up that conversation, knowing the things that we can actually do to look after our mental health and well-being, and normalizing when we're not feeling great and reaching out for support or just, informal talking with our friends and family, or if we need more additional support, linking with supports in the community, like the supports that we had put on our health and wellbeing information board, or going to the GP and just normalizing that sometimes we don't feel okay and we need to reach out for extra support.
Absolutely. And you know what, I love the word normalizing, because at some stage in all of our lives, I've no doubt that we'll all suffer from something in relation to our mental health, whether it's we have lost someone, it's grief or whatever, because our mental health is fueled by how we feel and how we react to our environment, and also I suppose how we perceive our environment. And I think creating a culture which accepts that it's okay, that it's okay to not be okay all the time is so important, especially for younger people and older people in our club. But it's a conversation for everyone.
Absolutely. And like, throughout our lives, we get colds, we get different things in terms of our physical health and our health, our overall health. It's a fluid state of being. And we go through different things and experiences and challenges in our lives. And we can be, flourishing and doing really well at times. And then different things in our life happens, whether it's, a loss, like you mentioned, a relationship that might not last, or a break breakup or something like that, or we didn't get the points that we expected in our
Mm.
leaving, or we're dealing with disappointment. And it's not to say that we can't overcome these challenges, and these are the normal things that we go through in life, and it's having the healthy coping mechanisms to go through those things. But it's also about being, it's okay to reach out for support when we're going through things, and knowing where to go when we need support. But there's lots of things that we can do to, I suppose, promote and protect and our mental health and well-being, and build our resilience so that we can overcome. And I know sometimes people say bounce back, but sometimes it's not so much as a bounce as a bit of a crawl at times, but it's that we can go forward and we can learn from our experiences and move on, and live the best life that we can. And what do we do? What do we need to be able to do that?
I love that, Nikki, and as I say, it doesn't matter if it's a crawl as long as we're moving forward. But, I think that's important as well because, resilience, we hear a lot about it and the bounce back ability, but, it's when the person really hasn't even started, I guess, the bounce back that they would do well to look for the resources like that Mental Health Ireland would offer, and look for the pathways to healing, I suppose, and to be able to bounce back. Because if you're stuck in grief, or in a relationship breakup, or in disappointment, as you mentioned, which is a wonderful one to work with going forward, it's then I think that to have information at our fingertips is so crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose at the moment we're all going through something. Everyone's situation may not be the same, but we're all experiencing and reacting to the changes that have, I suppose, been forced upon us due to this global pandemic that we're going through. And we will react in different ways, and some days will be good and some days won't be so good. So it's really important that we take time to reflect on what it is that we need, and our own needs first, because obviously, it's just like that analogy of putting on your own oxygen mask first. You
Sure.
can't fill a bucket from a dry well. We need to ensure that we're investing enough in our own well-being and in our own self-care, because that's crucial in terms of being able to function and flourish in our day-to-day lives. And I suppose the 5 ways to well-being is a good roadmap, as you mentioned, or a good signposting to the things that we can have control over, because right now there's an awful lot of stuff that's outside of our control, and it can get in on us a little bit. When we're listening to media reports of different situations, or the amount of numbers that, of COVID, and, all those things that we actually as an individual have no control over, we can become very disempowered and hopeless, and a little bit helpless too, because there are all these things that we don't have any control over. All we can control is how we behave in situations, and what we do to look after ourselves. And I suppose in some ways, um, making as many knowns as possible in our day-to-day life is very important. And I know Dr. Coleman Noctor would have spoken a little bit about that on our resources on our family toolkit. When we have so many unknowns in our life, it's important to create, knowns and things that we can control. And I suppose the 5 ways to well-being is something that we can just look at and reflect on and think about, how are these showing up in our day-to-day lives, so that we can look after ourselves at an individual level, a family level, and a community level.
Phenomenal. And I'm going to get you to take us through that journey for sure. Yeah, I think that's all. It's at the moment as well. And I think another point that sometimes there's so much, differing opinions about about how we should react. And I think that word sometimes should be taken out of the vocabulary, because, you know, it's all these personal opinions, and that can have a detrimental effect on us as well. You know, we might feel one way, and because coronavirus and the COVID is affecting different people at completely different levels, you know, and it's accepting that there's a bigger picture beyond us and our personal story at times as well, that, you know, whereas everything is relative to ourselves, that it can be affecting someone's mental health in a way that we don't understand or even know about, and that not everybody is able to talk about how they're feeling.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that has really shown up is that every aspect of our well-being, whether it's our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health, our social health, our sexual health, our emotional health, all these dimensions to our well-being are all interlinked, and they all impact on each other. And right now, you know, our social well-being is very much being impacted, which is impacting on our mental well-being and our physical well-being. And all of these things are linked. And I suppose we've never been so aware as individuals, families, communities, as a country, of something happening like this that is impacting on our health and on our economy, and how much there's this kind of, I suppose, link to how we experience our well-being and the greater and larger determinants that impact on that. So, you know, some people will have lost their jobs. Some people will have had huge financial challenges, and all these things are interlinked and impact on our well-being. But I suppose the one thing that, and just to reiterate that, because sometimes there is so much information and there's so much negative information, that we need to also balance the amount that we can actually tolerate, and how much we take in. And, you know, if you were to listen to news items from morning to night, that's a lot of the same information, a lot of the same possibly negative information that we're taking in, and that can skew how we experience things and see things. And sometimes we need to unplug, you know, to give ourselves something else to think about or to talk about. And when we do have opportunities to socially connect, even maintaining distance and doing everything that we do, that we think about the type of conversation that we're having, you know, whether it lifts us up or whether it drags us down. Just small things, because there's certain things that we have control over. There's certain things that we can control, that we can't control, but that we may be able to influence. And then there's certain things that we just have to accept. And at the moment, we're very much in that kind of acceptance space that, you know, this virus, this pandemic is here, and we can't control that. But there's other things that we can focus on, just to make, you know, our day-to-day more bearable, more enjoyable, you know, because it's a long, you know, we're in a marathon here, and we really need to think about kind of what we can do to look after our mental health and well-being in such a tough time. And we're all going through tough times, and we all need to remind ourselves, knowing this stuff does not mean that we do it as much as we need to do. So, you know, people working in people working in the area, you know, it doesn't mean just because you know, we're talking and thinking about this stuff all the time that we actually put it in action all the time. We all are, you know, we all need to remind ourselves that these are the things that we need to do. You know, I'll be the first to put my hand up to say, you know, it's been 3 or 4 days since I've gone out for a walk. The weather has changed a bit. It's not as nice, but you have to remind yourself, you know, you have to practice your what you're talking about as well, and put it into action.
And actually, I know that as well for myself, because I was going in for a swim there recently in the sea, and I wouldn't be a huge sea swimmer. I love a warm pool, but I went in and I wear all the, you know, the wetsuit, everything, because I have bad circulation, and the gloves. And I was a little anxious going in, and someone said to me, you know, I thought you were a positivity coach and, you know, whatever, but like, it doesn't mean that I don't have my own experiences like that. But I thought it was actually, you know, it's amazing how other people view us again there, as I say, as our story. It just means, I guess, that we have the tools that we know, you know, I tried to get out of it, but I've made myself go do it, you know.
Yes.
I think that's the resilience of being able to go through it when you have the tools And, you know,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it was something I wanted to do. So I
Yeah.
went off on a tangent there, sorry. So I'd love you
No.
to walk us through the 5 ways to wellbeing, Nicki, if that's something that you could do for us,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, so the 5 Ways to Wellbeing is a campaign that Mental Health Ireland have been promoting for a number of years now, and I suppose we've adapted some of the messaging around that to reflect the reality that we find ourselves in at the moment. But the 5 Ways is based on research that came out of the UK by an organisation called the New Economics Foundation, and it was based on that kind of 5 a day approach. So it's connect, be active, take notice, keep learning, and give. And I suppose it's to make it as accessible as possible as well. So it's 5 simple actions that the majority of people can incorporate into their everyday lives. And small actions like this do add up when they're combined to have an impact on our mental health and well-being in a positive way.
And I love
So
that. Sorry, I love that. It's like they're all things that we understand, you know, be active. They're not like, they're not words that we don't understand, which is there again, very helpful even in that.
yeah, absolutely. And I suppose a lot of it we may be doing already. But it's just to remind ourselves to prioritize it. So like the first one there, connect, which is all about our social connections. And at the moment that is impacted. There's no way of getting away from that. We can't see as many people as we would normally see. We can't have the same level of interaction. And we need to really think and be creative around how we can stay connected so that we don't become isolated and lonely, which is very easy to do. So it's how do we stay connected in a time at the moment going through the tough time that we're going through, and whether that's virtually like what we're doing here over Zoom, and whether it's having more phone calls as opposed to more texts, because you're communicating at a different level when you're speaking to somebody as opposed to just sharing texts. And that if you can go for a walk with somebody and maintain social distancing and all of those things, but to stay connected, it's really important that we don't lose connection. And I suppose it's unfortunate, the term social distancing, because I think it's more physical distancing really. And I know there's some movements across the world, like in Australia, and that to actually change the term, because we need to be socially connected, but we need to be physically distant at the moment.
I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, connection is key in our lives in a general sense in terms of the close connections that we have. So, our family, our friends, those close bonds that we have. But it's also important to have those broader connections. So, I love the piece that you mentioned around the GAA and, somewhere that we can belong. So that community piece, we may not be surrounded by people that know the ins and outs of our day-to-day lives, but we belong to something bigger than ourselves in our community. And that belonging is so important. And it's different than fitting in. It's about being accepted and having somewhere to go that you're known, even in your local community, whether you go down to the local shop or whatever it is. You mightn't necessarily know the person that's serving you very, very well, but you recognize them, and you exchange pleasantries, and it gives you a sense of being connected to the community that you live in, which is really key. So it's having close connections and broader connections, and also making sure that we have face-to-face connections, and that all our connections aren't based online, which can be a struggle at the moment. But we have more meaningful connections when they're in-person connections.
Phenomenal. Yeah, and I love that the GA is about, this is where we belong. I loved that campaign that they had, because yeah, I mean, especially for the younger people as well, grow up in an organization with a culture of belonging, and like
Yeah,
that fitting in is like, if you have to try and fit in, it's like you're trying to chop a piece of yourself off because you don't fit and you don't belong. It's
yeah,
just doesn't even sound as good as,
belonging.
yeah, fitting in is changing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. And with belonging, there's something about being accepted,
Yeah,
being accepted for yourself and warts and all type of things. So yeah, no, it's really key, and it's a lovely message that the GAA have been promoting, which is fantastic. And then I suppose the Be Active one is something, that is it's very simple in terms of its message, and all of these are simple. They're not always easy to integrate into our lives, but they're simple messages. But the Be Active one is really demonstrating that physical activity is good for the mind and the body, and the mind and the body are so interlinked. When we're not doing well physically, that can impact on ourselves mentally, and when we're struggling, or if we're having a mental health difficulty, that can impact on our physical health as well. So being active is really important in terms of whatever your level of comfort is, or where you're at in your life, building in some level of activity on a day-to-day basis. Some people go to the gym, involved in sports and whatever. And for others, that might not be an option for them, or may not be their reality, but there may be other ways that they can build in physical activity in their everyday lives. And it's just to ensure that we keep that to the forefront in terms of our overall well-being. And there's lots of resources out there, like Get Ireland Walking, Sports Ireland, the Healthy Ireland campaign, in terms of ideas and things that you can get involved in to maintain physical activity, and also around the guidelines around, for your age and for your ability, or your health, what would be a target that we would like to be able to incorporate into our lives.
for sure. Love that. Yeah, and like active is it's movement, and like an emotion is a piece of energy that moves through us. Like that, when we even, I know for myself, even you might have feel a strong emotion, and you go for a walk and you just feel better, because it's this movement, isn't it? It's getting this
Yeah.
energy to move through us and to breathe.
Absolutely. And I think what you say there is key, Dolores. It's this energy, and sometimes staying stationary doesn't shift it for us. And when we're stressed out, we need that physical activity to burn out that stress, and burn off the chemicals that are produced in our body, and that. And movement can change our emotions, change how we're feeling. So sometimes, we mightn't be able to think our way out of something, but sometimes, like that, going for a walk, clearing the head, taking in our surroundings, which brings us nicely to the kind of take notice piece, which is really, I suppose, something that has gained momentum over the last decade anyway. In terms of taking notice, really is about being present, which is all is what mindfulness is all about. But when we actually break down what is mindful, what is being mindful, what is mindfulness, it's about being present, paying attention in the present moment. So when I'm doing something here, when I'm here with you having this conversation, I'm here with you, I'm not ruminating about the past or worrying about the future. And we've all, look, it's a human condition. We do have lots of mindless times in our day. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that goes upstairs, and when I get to the top of the stairs, I'm wondering, what did I come up here for? At least I hope I'm not.
You're definitely not.
Or even the other day, I know I had the keys to my car and opened it, and then I couldn't find them because I placed them somewhere because I was thinking of something else. So we all have those moments in our lives, but it's about making a deliberate and conscious effort to build in being mindful and being present. So when you're having a cup of coffee, you're having a cup of coffee and you're present there with that and experiencing that. Or when you're going for a walk, that you're taking in the nature around you, and you know um just being present. I mean, we've all had times when we're going for a walk and we could have the dog with us, and we're on the phone or we're listening to something, and we're doing a number of different things at the same time. And multitasking, while it was quite popular term, and even in job descriptions, the ability to multitask, the fact is, if you're trying to do more than one thing at once, you're not giving one thing your 100%. So and our ability to focus, and our ability to concentrate, is impacted by that. It's like a muscle, and when we're constantly chopping and changing from different activities and not focused, or you're doing an activity and then your phone, or it could be an assignment you're working on, or a piece of work that you're doing for your job, and or even just something, in your own personal life, and then your phone keeps pinging or drawing your attention away. The amount of energy it takes to go between those two tasks, and get restarted again, so we do lose the ability to focus and the ability to pay attention. And mindfulness and paying attention and incorporating opportunities in our day to be able to take 2 minutes just to be fully present, it builds our capacity to be able to do that.
I love that. And I reminds me of the lyrics in a song, which I always mention when I'm doing coaching, the Leonard Cohen song that says, there's a crack in everything, and that's where the light gets in. So I always use this as a way to say to people, when you're in the present moment, as you said, you're not stuck in the past because you can't change the past. You're not being anxious about the future because the future hasn't come yet. You're actually in the present moment. And when you do that and stop the mind clatter, then you actually have that crack where you can let the light in, as in an aha moment, a light bulb moment, because you actually take the time to stop worrying and projecting something into the future that hasn't happened. The only place where we create the future is the present moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose John Kabat-Zinn would say, the only moment we have is now, and that's it. And it's so true. And I suppose our lives are increasingly busy, increasingly have so many distractions. And I suppose take notice is also a bit about tuning in, to our feelings, and even how we feel physically in our body. We wake up in the morning, the alarm goes off, we're out of bed, down having breakfast or doing whatever it is, and out the door before we've actually even checked in with ourselves and kind of said, well, how am I today? Or we're so busy looking after other people, or we've so many commitments that a lot of people are so busy, and there's so much on the hamster wheel of life, because that's just our reality at times, that we don't get a chance to actually connect in and say, well, how am I feeling? And we can then become disconnected from our emotions, and we can become a little bit disconnected from how we feel physically as well. So it's about taking that bit of time and even tuning into, well, what are my needs? What do I need? What are the things that I need to maintain my self-care, my own mental health and well-being, and knowing that. And it's just creating little opportunities in our life to be able to do that in our day-to-day.
Love it.
So I suppose that the next part of the 5 ways to well-being is keep learning. And I suppose this is something that I personally love, because it's all about challenging yourself to try new things. And it's not all about academic learning or, taking on different courses and big commitments. It's just things that you can do on a day-to-day basis to learn something new. And, as they say, every day is a school day. So, whatever it is that you can do to keep the mind challenged, to create new neural pathways in the brain, and trying new things, whether it's a new recipe or a new hobby or a new way of doing something, a new way of responding to situations, a new way of dealing with stress, whatever it is, but just to continually have opportunities to learn something new.
Love that one as well. And it's great to be more open-minded. I think, you learn something, go, oh, you realize the perception you may have had about something is not really the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that keep learning piece can be something as simple as, like I mentioned, a new recipe, trying a new recipe, or trying a new hobby. And it's not about being brilliant at it. It's not about, doing something and trying to be the best, in the class, or the best at something. It's about having fun, being connected to other people. When we take on something new, it can link us to different groups, different people, different perspectives, and it changes, I about ourselves as well, because we can maybe have opportunities to learn something new about ourselves, and even whether it's coping with something in a different way, or learning a new skill that we didn't know we had, or reconnecting with something that we used to really enjoy in our life years ago that we loved. Sometimes I mention when I'm delivering workshops that my grandmother, when she was 70, took up painting and discovered that she was actually a fantastic artist.
Love
She
it.
was amazing, and we have some fabulous
Wow.
paintings now. And her children and her grandchildren have them. And she just didn't have an opportunity in her life, obviously, rearing a family, being a homekeeper, and that she didn't have those opportunities. And she was able just to take up something new and discover this amazing talent that she had. And I just thought to myself, wow, I hope I'm 70 learning something new about myself like that. It's fabulous.
It is phenomenal. Fair play to her, and it's great. It's great to, yeah, because we can be so conditioned to feel we're one way, maybe, this is the way I am, this is the way I
Yeah.
should be, rather than challenge the story at times. And I suppose it's
Yeah.
great to have I think we need to be emotionally fit enough to do that, though, to
Yeah, absolutely.
the beliefs of I can't and I shouldn't, and who am I to do that and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is definitely, we need to be in a space where we feel that we can do that. But again, sometimes the action brings along the feelings as well as the other way around at times. So then I suppose that's the last and final one, which is a big one, which is around giving. And it connects us to other people when we give, whether it's something small like giving a compliment to somebody, or saying thank you to someone, or it can be something big like volunteering, depending on your situation. So giving is really important. It connects us to other people and to people, to outside our own stories and our own lives. And I suppose there is a benefit to the person who receives and the person who gives. And it's a really good, I suppose it's great that it's there in the 5 ways to well-being, because giving to other people enriches their lives, and it can enrich your life as well. And sometimes, it really is simple things like if you've ever been in a car park where you had maybe half an hour left on your ticket or whatever, and you just give it to the person behind you, and it just makes their day. If they just didn't have to go, it doesn't have to be huge things, but it is really important that we have opportunities, because it does connect us to other people as well.
I love that. And yeah, even the gift of a smile. Nicki,
Yeah.
that's phenomenal. I love those 5 ways to well-being. I love the paths. I think they're very important. And as I say, they're simple, but we don't always think of them,
Mm-hmm.
So if people want, like, let's say the people I'm sharing this with now, the club and our greater community, if they want more information about these pathways, or these, I keep calling them pathways, but the 5 ways to well-being,
Yeah.
where can they get more information about the work that Mental Health Ireland do?
Yeah, if you visit mentalhealthireland.ie, we have a range of information on our website, but we have a dedicated page to the 5 ways to well-being, and there's lots of information there. On our YouTube channel as well, there's a nice video on the 5 ways to well-being, which is a really lovely way just to kind of take in that information as well. But definitely visit the 5 ways to well-being on mentalhealthireland.ie.
That's great. And, I suppose if anybody, the website as well has lots of information where, let's say someone realizes that they have these feelings about whatever their emotions, can they go to your website to get whatever resources they need to take the next step?
Yeah, there's signposting on the website to other services as well, but also don't forget the yourmentalhealth.ie, which is the HSC website, which has also lots of really good, reliable information on there if people want to access it. And then, of course, the Samaritans as well. And I suppose the really important aspect to the Health and Wellbeing Board that we developed over the last couple of months and just launched was that there is a range of local and national services there, and we were in contact with all those services, and all that information is there for a range of different I suppose services to reach out to if somebody feels that they want to talk to somebody about something.
And that's great, because I think that the five ways to well-being as well, I mean, whichever of them there is, you might have an issue with, there's always someone to talk, even when you say be active, but that's, as you say, as like being active does affect our mental health. and does it affect the way we feel? Even if we don't want to use the word mental health, it affects the way we feel. So if something is affecting the way we feel, we can go on and we can read these ways and realize, oh, you know, it could be something as just getting moving. That's a step in the right direction, you know, and it's each of these are steps in the right direction, you know, and I think that that's the beauty of them.
Yeah, and I suppose the one thing I would say is that if somebody is, you know, feeling down or feeling that they need to reach out, is don't bottle it up, don't keep it to yourself. It's really important to reach out, whether that's to a friend, a family, you know, speak to somebody that you feel that you can speak to, and your GP as well. You know, it's really important that you reach out and don't just go through something on your own.
Because there are, as you say, there are the resources there. And I will be speaking to the Samaritans as well, because there was one of the initiatives I did want to bring in is this wonderful huddle they do with GA clubs. But I am going to be speaking and sharing this. They will be sharing with us too this resource. And it's all about there again of just, like, I think because especially with young people, it can be peer pressure. Now we can have peer pressure any time of our lives. But, you know, I think if it's very inclusive, if this is something that's been done with the whole team, it suddenly becomes more acceptable. So as you say, there are so many services out there, and never bottle it up is a good way. Nicki, is there anything that I haven't mentioned that you'd like to leave us with?
No, just that on the mentalhealthireland.ie website, there's lots of resources that we developed over the lockdown and the pandemic, that speak specifically to what people might be going through in terms of you know, their mental health and well-being. We just recently published Getting Back to the Workplace publication that's available on our website, and I have hard copies of that as well, and we do in Dublin in our head office if someone wants to access that. It's a really good little booklet that details information about what we might be experiencing and dealing with our emotions and stress as well. So just do visit mentalhealthireland.ie, and I hope that we'll be able to meet your needs around the information that you want.
Well, it's a pleasure talking to you, Nicki, and thanks again for your help with our information, our board and the club. We're all delighted with it, and it's a great to have this resource. So thanks for speaking with us, and talk to you soon.
Take care. Thanks a million, Dolores.